I can't do it anymore. That was good. This will only be funny if you see that on YouTube.
You're gonna have to watch the video on this one to see what happened.
Yeah. We're just trying to make each other. It's like a game of chicken with the podcast. I feel like we're starting to do that now.
Just wait to see who's gonna crack first.
Yeah, who's gonna talk first on that one?
Hi, I'm Nick.
And I'm Josh.
And this is the Puds Podcast.
What's going on, my friend? What's going on? You're back after a brief hiatus. Ash stepped in, clutch for us for a bit.
The pinch hitter stepped in, knocked it out of the park.
David Ortiz is still kicking.
Coming in, game winner. But I'm back, man. I'm back, and I just had it was a busy week last week. Still busy, but this week at least I'm on vacation.
Awesome, yeah.
So it's not as bad.
Yeah, we got I guess February vacation for the kiddos this week, so that's cool that you were able to take it off and hang out.
Yeah, it was nice because we didn't. I just took it off to kind of spend the time at home with the family and all that stuff. So it was nice because today we went up to Mystic, Connecticut to go to Mystic Aquarium.
Excellent.
And, enjoyed some time over there today. Really had I had a lot of flashbacks, dude, from like elementary school field trips out there. Because I don't think I've been there since probably like the 5th grade.
That's a long time. Did you see the Did you see the belugas?
Saw the belugas. That was what hit it, dude. Is that like that? There's like that little I don't even know what you would call it, like pre-entrance vestibule area with like the beluga whales to the right, and I'm like, oh man, I remember this. And then I just had a flashback of me waiting for my class to hurry up and get in line so we can go back to the bus. And I'm like, oh yeah, I'd definitely been here before.
Yeah, I love that aquarium. I think so. New England Aquarium, the one in Boston, is really cool, but I feel like for big animals, like Mystic is more impressive because they've got like all the sea lions, they've got a couple different species of seals, they've got the belugas.
Yeah. It was honestly very surprising. I was very happily surprised with what they had, and because through Jeremiah's school, I think he and one adult got to go in for free. So we just paid for one adult.
That's pretty cool. Was it like is it just something they do? Like was it like a coupon that they offered to the school or something, or is it just?
It's like it's a Feinstein school, so it's like a.
Okay.
I don't know. I don't know if they have a Feinstein
the Feinstein Junior Scholars program or whatever.
Yeah. So part of that, they get like these different little perks to go to different little places, and this was one of them. So yeah, we really got to enjoy that day up there, and Jeremiah is at like a prime age, dude. Like I know I said it for Christmas, like this was the best Christmas.
Yeah, but for zoos and all those types of things.
Oh man, it's like night and day because when he was younger, we would go to the zoos and stuff like that, and it would just be like a checklist of like, all right, I just need to like be in the area where these things are. Like I'm not going to sit and spend time and look at them and try to find them. It's like, nope, there's the rhino, there's the leopard, there's the monkeys. Okay, we're done. Now it's like he like is looking for them. He's entertained by it. He's like trying to figure out the different species, and like we did like at Mystic they have like the touch tanks where you can like touch like the stingrays and like the small sharks and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. So he got to he hung out there for a while trying to pet those.
Get a little hands on.
Yeah, he finally got to pet one. He was like, "Oh, I don't want to do that anymore."
Doesn't feel like I expected. I think the weird thing too with stingrays and all those things, you don't realize that they have scales. So like if you rub them the wrong way, like their skin's like very like coarse. Like it's not really smooth like you'd expect it to be. Like I don't know if
that's what he said.
Like I bet I feel like if you just look at a stingray, I would think its texture would be like almost like a smooth clay or something like that. Like you expect it to be like, and then you touch and you're like, oh, that's kind of rough.
That's what happened with him. He was like, oh, I didn't expect it to feel like that. And then he's like, I don't want to do that again.
I'll never forget the first time he touched a stingray.
Yeah, no. Yeah. And then there was like this extra exhibit. They called it like the ocean dinosaur exhibit or something like that. It was like, I don't even know, an extra like $5 a person. And we got to go into there. I think it used to be like I think they used to have like a big shark exhibit, and that's what that was at one point. But
is it like off to the left of the entrance when you walk in?
Yeah.
I thought they. So I remember at one point, and this is from when I think me and Ashton went back when we were in like college. But it used to be like the Robert Ballard something or whatever, like the oceanographer that discovered the Titanic. Like I think he had an affiliation with them for a while, and they had a theater there that they showed.
Yeah.
But I think now since they've turned it into like bonus exhibits, I remember they had a dinosaur thing there when we went. We went with Rylan, I think last spring maybe. But she had kind of had it by that point. I'm like, we're not gonna pay $5 to go torture her longer. Anyways.
Yeah. So it is that name that you said. It's that little building, and they have like the dino exhibit there, but there's actually not really any dinosaurs in there. So I don't know why they named it that, but yeah, no, they had the theater. So there was cool. they did like a little 4D movie, which was actually pretty sick. And like Jeremiah got to experience his first like 4D movie.
Ooh.
And he was like, what's doing that? I think somebody's spitting on me, because it was like spraying water and stuff like that. And like there was like the air would blow to like make you feel like things were running across your feet and stuff like that, dude. And he was like, at first he was like, why is that happening? Why is that thing popping out of the TV? Like, it's all part of the experience, buddy. But by the end he got it. He was like, yeah, that was awesome.
They call that the fourth dimension.
Yeah, that's it. So yeah, no, he got to experience all that, and yeah, no, it was cool. It was really cool. And then we went to after that we went to Mango's for some pizza.
Oh, I love Mango's. Been there several times.
Mango's was, oh man, that was top of the line, dude. And then there was in the little village there was an anime store that we had to go pop in to go take a look at.
Oh yeah, we had to pop in.
Yeah, dude. Well, me and Jeremiah had to pop in. I guess Sawyer and Melissa didn't have to pop in, but me and Jeremiah had to pop in.
Cool.
Yeah. It was pretty epic. It was like wall-to-wall anime. I really didn't expect it.
Is it just comics, or is it just like memorabilia? Is it like just, or
yeah, it's like all,
like everything?
It was like everything. It was like all anime memorabilia and like all the mangas and all that stuff. Like it was they even had like a little like Japanese like food section with like all the like different ice creams that they do and stuff like that. So yeah, no, it was pretty sick. I think it was called Akira or something like that. I'll have to post it in the show notes maybe. But
cool. Yeah, we can
sponsor the pod. Sponsor the pod.
Akira. No, that Mystic Village is always cool to walk around. It's kind of quaint. I feel like some of the shops are like ridiculously overpriced for stuff. But there's one that has like a lot of spices and
100%.
There's one that has like a lot of spices and things like that we usually check out. Been a little bit since we've been there. We're probably due for a trip. Now that Riley could probably just walk around the whole time. Yeah,
we didn't pop around in there too much. We literally just went to that store and then just went home because it was already a long day. But I did the scenic route too, dude. I didn't cut through Providence. I didn't go through Providence. I went through like Newport, Narragansett.
Oh yeah.
To Connecticut. It was it was a fantastic drive, dude. It was so nice.
Yeah, other than what is it, $5 across the Newport Bridge now? I think each way. $4. That's ridiculous. That's insane. That blew my mind when I went to Jamestown with Brown. I'm like, how is it this expensive to go over the freaking Newport Bridge?
It's worth it to just avoid all that Providence nonsense.
Yeah. Is it quicker for you to go? Is it really that much of a difference for you?
It was like a 8-minute difference.
Okay.
So it was 8 minutes longer.
If we're heading that way, it's not too much of a difference for us either.
On the way home, it was like 8 minutes. It was actually like 15 minutes shorter on the way home.
Oh, nice.
Because of the traffic
that
was occurring in Providence at that time. So
the 195 nightmare.
Yeah, it was nice. Drive through like Exeter, dude. Like all those like super off in the cut like towns in Rhode Island that nobody's ever heard of. Hope Valley, like weird like tiny towns.
East Greenwich.
Yeah, no, not that. I don't think I was that far.
Yeah, you probably didn't. Well, you drove probably past Coventry and that whole like westerly. Like you're getting pretty down there.
Yeah, it was nice. But yeah, man, that's what I've been up to. What
Cool.
about you? What have you been up to?
So last week was kind of crazy for some family stuff. Meme Claire was kind of in the hospital, so that was a thing, but she's doing better now. I appreciate all the friends and family reaching out as well. So last week was kind of shot, but over the weekend, kind of was just hanging out. I'm trying to think what we did. Oh, well, I want to say congrats again to family of the podcast, Matt and Hannah. My sister-in-law Hannah is now engaged to Mr. Matthew Monty. So her good fiance, and who I love because he's gone hiking with me a few times. So he's done the twins and stuff, and they both like to hike.
Yeah, congratulations to Matt. He's got a good one. He got a good one. So
yeah,
congratulations to Matt and Hannah.
Congrats. We love you guys. So yeah, Saturday we went out and went to a dinner at Mare on the Rooftop, who sister-in-law of the podcast, Rachel, works at. So kind of worked out over there. And Sunday, I'm always blanking on the podcast with what I did.
Didn't you go hiking on Sunday, dude?
No, that was Monday.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm like, no, that was Monday. I know we were busy Sunday doing something. I know we did something Sunday, but I can't remember. It's the pressure of trying to remember when I'm on the podcast. That's the thing, is like, if it was 2 minutes ago, I would have been fine looking at what we did. I'm trying to think what happened Sunday.
The day before,
I know what happened. I know what happened Sunday. I know what happened Sunday. So Sunday we had Ash's, Meme, and Pepe and Vivu over, along with Tony and Lisa, for a belated Christmas dinner. So we figured it'd be a good present for them at their age, kind of, because they really don't need anything. They're all in their 80s and they're all healthy and doing well. So we figured we'd actually just make dinner for them and have them over, and they love spending time with their great granddaughter. So that was kind of their belated Christmas present. We were supposed to do it earlier in the year, and had some plans change. So yeah, that was the backup plan. So we did that on Sunday, and then Monday, I was watching the forecast in the whites, and just like around here, it was very windy and cold, except they got all snow instead of like the mix of rain that we got. So I think they got a boatload of snow from what I was reading online. And it was super windy, and Monday it was supposed to be ridiculously cold. I think the high in Lincoln was like 9 degrees or something crazy. So needless to say, it did not look like a good day to finish my winter 48 doing the bonds. That was out of the question. And then, so I'm like, I was kind of coming to that conclusion. Then as it was getting closer and I was watching the weather, I'm like, I don't even know if I want to drive up with how the snow is looking. Like, I didn't know if the trailheads were going to be plowed out or whatever. And originally I was thinking maybe I'll go up to Franconia Notch and tool around, but yeah, I think after looking at the forecast and considering the possibility of like not knowing even where I could hike and where I could park, opted to hit up our old familiar favorite, Mount Wachusett. And Mount Wachusett was feeling more alien than I've ever felt it there before. It was super windy, iced over. I used snowshoes the whole time, which I don't think I've ever done at Wachusett before. It looked like nobody had really been up there, at least on sort of the southwestern side of the mountain. I parked off Westminster Road since the storm hit. So I was pretty much breaking trail all day, and the trail conditions were a lovely sort of sheet of ice standing over 5 or 6 inches of like fresh powder that they got. And it was bitterly cold, but I was able to make up kind of an interesting loop. I was messing with my new Garmin watch and plotted out a route basically in all trails, so it could kind of tell me where to turn, because I was looping around a bunch, so it was good because I definitely did not remember the exact route I had plotted out in the morning. So it was kind of cool to be able to use that and try that on the trail. But I ended up doing maybe like 8 miles and about 3,000 feet, went over the summit like 3 times. And it was like super nasty up there. It was just funny. There was nobody up there. I saw nobody all day until the way down, other than at the top of the ski area.
Is this still it's still an active like ski mountain, right?
Yep. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. If you go,
so how do you
it's
how
on
do you
it's
get
on
up and
the
down hiking?
What do you mean, the ski hills or the
like? Is it so where you're hiking? It's not near the ski area.
It is. Yeah, we'll have to walk over there next time we're up there. You can see
you
the chairlift.
You still have to pay to like.
Oh yeah, it's a full blown ski area. It's on the northeastern. So on what?
So like when you hike, do you have to like pay to like? You know how some places you have to like pay even if you're hiking through.
Nope. Nope, you don't have to pay.
Oh, you don't have to do that. Okay.
Yeah, you're not supposed to really go on the ski trails, even in the summer and stuff. There are portions of the trails that cross over the ski trails. I didn't do any, actually I did one technically on that day. Pine Hill crosses the very top of Roper's Road. But yeah, you don't have to pay anything. But yeah, it's a full-blown ski area on the other side, so it's very much. I mean, it was a cold day skiing. I don't know if I would have wanted to go out and sit on a chairlift going up not that mountain. Though I'll say on the northeastern and eastern side, the wind was coming out of the west, so it wasn't too bad on that side of the mountain. But like on anything west facing and north facing was like just brutal. Like even in the trees, I still had my shell on and stuff. Can't say there's not too many times that I busted open hand warmers and had mittens on hiking around Wachusett. I'll say that much. And by the last couple times I was crossing over the summit, the wind gusts were like enough where I was like just standing still and like digging my trekking pole into the ground and like just standing there and taking it because it was enough to push me around. So,
wow.
But yeah, it was kind of weird to be up somewhere where I'd been there so much, and I'm like, it's pretty nasty today. And I was like, I'm so glad I did not drive up to the Whites today. Because I think it just for the drive time to experience that, I'm like, I can just go up here and get blasted by 50-mile-per-hour wind gusts and like a negative 15-degree wind chill. So it was a nice day to kind of just keep in the winter conditioning and maybe it was gone for like the late morning through the early afternoon. Still got back at a decent time, but yeah, it was a good time.
Nice.
Did curse some of the people that were post holing the day before, so I had to deal with some frozen post holes. But other than that, the trails were pretty good. Pine Hill and Philip Karsh's favorite trail, Mountain House, were actually busted out pretty well from the odds. Nice. But other than that, was just breaking trail all day. And again, didn't see anybody till getting towards the bottom. Kind of weird. I figured there'd be someone else out. And there was a lot of down trees and stuff on the trail and just pine needles. There were certain sections like, you know, that like Pine Grove kind of area like we walked through when we hiked it with you?
Yeah.
Just pine needles blasted everywhere, probably from like them being frozen and then like the wind just hitting them. Like it was kind of like it almost looked like confetti, I guess. Like it
hasn't been above like 30 degrees in like feels like a month and a half. So
yeah, everything's just frozen, and there was a good amount of snow. There was some knee high drifts in certain spots. Most of it was a little bit lower than that, but
did you have your snowshoes?
Yeah, I took them and I wore them all day. I did wear their older like 21-inch tub snowshoes that Ash has, or her like old ones, so they're a little bit lighter and smaller. But I kind of just opted to use those, and I kind of was at first, I'm like, maybe I'll throw in the spikes, but there was enough to pretty much use them comfortably all day.
Nice.
So it was fun. Yeah, it was a nice little Wawa trip. But yeah, that's
awesome, man.
That's about it, man. And we're getting ready to go to the Adirondacks this weekend, so I'm stoked. Hopefully me and Ash will get out for something. I'm headed up with Tony and Lisa and Rylan. Should be a good time. Hopefully not ridiculously cold.
Awesome.
Fingers crossed. So,
let's hope so, because it can't get much colder than it is right now.
No. And recapping some hiking news, we did have a story. I'm sure some people have seen this. It seemed like this made like the national headlines a lot of places too when I was looking at articles for it. But back on February 4th, we had 2 hikers rescued from the summit of Mount Washington. So this was was an interesting situation. Yeah, it was fun. It hit everywhere. It's funny how some of these stories get picked up like almost nationally, and some of them kind of just stay under the radar. I'm not sure exactly what causes that. But shortly after 6 p.m. on the evening of February 2nd, New Hampshire Fish and Game was contacted after receiving a 911 call from hikers who were basically lost on the Jewel Trail off Mount Washington. So the Jewel Trail is the one that kind of comes up from the west from almost the Cog to meet sort of Gulf side. Brings you up really at the base of Mount Clay, sort of the western side of Mount Clay. A pretty popular route to go up to Mount Washington or make a loop coming up from Ammonoosuc Ravine and sort of going over to Monroe and then going up to Washington and coming down. I think that's probably the most common use case. You'll see people doing Jewel. I've also just gone up it out and back to Mount Washington. You break tree line pretty quickly. I will say they get into detail in this article, but it definitely is a trail where I could see it being very difficult to navigate, especially if you're dealing with blowing snow. And a lot of snow and blowing snow obscuring your visibility on the way down. It is very open-ended as far as once you break tree line. Like there's some cairns and stuff marking the way, but I think unless you're really familiar with that in the winter, I think it'd be pretty easy to lose it. And these 2 people, from what it sounds like, were totally prepared. So kudos to them. They had their hike safe card, and they actually had a bivvy with them and set up an emergency shelter to sort of stay in place once they called it. And actually called into authorities and kind of realized they weren't going to be able to go down. And shout out to those guys and the search and rescue teams that were kind of called in, they basically they got 9 people up that they left at 10:30 p.m. from the Mount Washington Auto Road. It looks like they got up just below the summit of Clay by the Jewel Trail by 1:20 a.m. This is kind of their last known location of the hikers. I guess this was based on sort of just GPS and stuff. And they were saying that the rescuers themselves were just relying on a GPS track to actually find the trail and sort of track the Jewel Trail up there. So it must have been pretty bad.
Wow.
It looks like by 1:50 a.m. on the 3rd, they actually located the 2 hikers. It sounded like they were just struggling. In addition to finding the trail, they kept hitting spruce traps. So we've talked about spruce traps a little bit on the podcast, but basically pockets of air that get trapped beneath spruce on the trails and typically above tree lines. So you'll hit these pockets and plunge through them, and it can be really, really exhausting to deal with, to say the least, especially if you have snowshoes on. And it sounds like crews immediately sort of set up an emergency shelter to get the hikers warmed up. And about 3 a.m., they actually were able to get the hikers mobilized, and they were able to continue under their own power down the Jewel Trail towards the COG base station down there, the bottom of Jewel and where Ammonoosuc sort of meet. Looks like at 4:15 a.m., they were able to sort of reach the bottom, and they were both evaluated, and it looks like one of them sort of got taken to Twin Mountain. Or rather, sorry, one of them was evaluated by a Twin Mountain ambulance staff, but they got taken to a hospital in Littleton, where they kind of got evaluated for cold weather injuries. Said, yeah, they were both experienced. They had all the necessary gear, and it just goes to show you, I mean, even if you're an experienced hiker up there, we talked about this before, but shit happens to everybody. And kudos to them for having the stuff to survive up there while they're waiting for rescuers. And the article from Fish and Game flat out calls out that if they didn't have that gear, they likely would have perished on the side of the mountain, and nobody would have been able to get them out. So
yeah, I think that's the big takeaway I had from it was these people were prepared, and thank goodness they were, because that prevented what could have been a tragedy where a couple people might have lost their lives because they weren't prepared for something like this. And coming off of the Snow Safe Summit, as we've talked about enough times on this podcast, it's thank goodness there's things like that in place, and thank goodness there are people that are diligent enough to understand, all right, yeah, this is, even though I'm prepared, I know we got to call this in, because yeah, like I said, it could have been a tragedy, and it's obviously an emergency, but it's not a tragedy. So it's happy to hear that search and rescue team was able to recover these people alive and treat them for whatever, hopefully minor issues they had.
Yeah, I would assume some frostbite. I'd read in another article that it sounds like they both sort of lost use of their hands, so I'm assuming maybe one of them had frostbite pretty good. Yeah. Once you lose that dexterity in your fingertips, it gets pretty hard to actually do anything, which I think sometimes people don't realize until it happens. They were saying that basically they estimated by sort of 8:30 p.m. that night, the temperatures were up -2 degrees and sustained winds of 50 to 60 miles per hour with higher gusts.
Insane.
So fairly nasty. And New Hampshire Vision Gabe did want to shout out members of the Mount Washington State Park Mountain Rescue Service, the Twin Mountain Fire and Rescue, the New Hampshire State Police Troop F Dispatch as helping out things. So like we said, we always like to hear good outcomes for these ones. While it's not ideal to get trapped on Mount Washington and maybe have some issues with frostbite, it's a heck of a lot better than getting dragged off the mountain. So good outcome.
For sure.
Cool, man.
You ready?
We're ready to get the next music moment.
Let's do it.
All right, so I went down sort of a little Apple Music rabbit hole. I was driving home, I don't know, like a couple weeks ago or whatever, from doing something. It was vague memory when this album first came on. But Apple Music a lot of times creates playlists of art. It'll be like this artist and artists similar to them. So it was the band Sea Lemon, which I had plugged one of their EPs, I don't know, 4 or 5 episodes back, probably now. So it was artists similar to Sea Lemon, and this led me to this great album that I've been listening to. So the album is called Household Name by the band Momma, which I thought was just kind of interesting. Momma. It came out in 2022. So Momma is an American rock band formed in Calabasas, California in 2015. The members are Etta Friedman, Allegra Weingarten, and Zach Fenton. And this is their 3rd full-length album. They also have a new album coming out called Welcome to My Blue Sky, coming out in April. I just actually found that out today, so I'll definitely be tuning in and listening to that. I was listening to the single off this earlier today when I was running. And some of my favorite songs off it are Medicine, Brave, Speeding 72, and Calling Me. And I don't know, just going to say it's just a good album. I've really enjoyed it. Some female vocals going on there, which I'm always a sucker for. I think the production's really done well. There's those elements of this album that for some reason really remind me of like the Smashing Pumpkins and like Nirvana a little bit. I believe they're sort of using the wall of sound sort of technique, which for those of you that don't know is sort of where they just layer over guitars a bunch and kind of get like a fuller, bigger sound off it. I think this might be interesting. I haven't looked up any videos of them playing live, but I'm assuming it's probably interesting because I think they're just a 3-piece with a bass and one guitar and a drummer. And 2 vocalists. So I'm curious how that translates live. I feel like sometimes that can be a good thing and sometimes it can not work out as well as it sounds on the album. But yeah, they're a cool band, pretty new on the block. Check them out. Household Name by Momma.
Momma.
Do we have any Josh's Jazzy?
Dude, so I guess we consider this a Josh. We can consider this
That's fine. Yeah.
Josh's Jazzy, but so just sitting in my sunroom the other day, and I had this song stuck in my head, and I don't know how it got stuck there. I don't even know if I've heard this song more than like a handful of times in my entire life, and I don't know. At that point, I didn't know the lyrics to the song, but I remembered the music video, and I knew like the general sound of the song.
What?
Yeah. So it gets good.
I'm intrigued.
So all I remembered was the music video was just like this white dude dancing so strangely. and then I remembered like the chorus went something like
I know which song.
You know what it is?
Yeah.
Tell me.
It's a Talking Heads song.
Oh, it is.
Of course. Yeah.
Yeah, you're good.
Same
dude.
as it ever was.
You're good.
Same as it ever was.
Yeah, exactly. So that was the Talking Heads Once in a Lifetime.
Yeah, Once in a Lifetime.
Yeah. So I don't know how it got stuck in my head. I Googled white guy dancing strangely in music video from like the 80s, and that popped up, and I'm like, yep, this is the one. And that song stinks. It's a great chorus, but that song's terrible.
Oh man, I'm gonna disagree, but I like the Talking Heads.
Check out the video. I like the Talking Heads. I'm a Talking Heads guy.
They're kind of out there. Fun piece of Rhode Island trivia. So David Byrne, their singer, who's been a songwriter for like a bunch of other stuff other than outside of the Talking Heads, maybe like movies and some things like that. But he actually went to Rhode Island School of Design. He went to RISD. So RISD. Talking Heads were actually formed at RISD.
Wow.
Yeah, they're a local band.
I gotta give them some more respect.
They're way past local at this point, but they were a local little band.
Yeah.
And I think David Byrne was still dancing super weird back then.
I know them.
His, thing.
I know them best from probably one of their biggest hits, which was Psycho Killer.
Yeah.
But yeah, so check it out. It's a very strange music video. The song itself.
The song's weird.
I guess up for debate. But that is Once in a Lifetime. Oh man, Once in a Lifetime by the Talking Heads.
Awesome. All right, man, you ready to get into our super cool guest?
Yeah,
I'm eager to talk to them. I don't really know much about them other than their photography, so I'm excited that they're agreed to be on the podcast. Excited to chat with them, so let's get into it.
It's gonna be fun. Let's go.
All right, so tonight we've got Corey Outdoors on the podcast, who I really just know from your outstanding photography. So I'm excited to talk to you. We were just discussing a little bit beforehand, but this is by far the most open-ended guest we've had. I just sort of reached out on a whim. I'm like, I don't know. I really like your photography. It looks like this dude would be really cool to talk to. So yeah, that's about it. Do you want to introduce yourself, Corey?
So this is Nick telling you that he is a big fan of yours, and we're so happy to have you on, Corey.
Yes. Yeah. Yes. And that.
Well, I'm excited to be on. Yeah, as far as introducing myself, my name is Corey. I live up here in the White Mountains in the Mount Washington Valley. I've been as far as the photography thing, I've been a photographer probably since about like 2017 or 2015. Maybe I was like dabbling a little bit, and then I got more serious in 2017. And then I didn't really start my photography business, which is actually my full-time job, until like I want to say 2021, and I was doing kind of that side hustle on the side just to make ends meet. And then I kind of quit that and really dug in deep and just started going after it. Otherwise, living in the Mount Washington Valley, I'm a really avid hiker, both road and trail runner, backpacker, front country camper, kind of you name it. I've dabbled in things like climbing and skiing, but really, for the most part, have stuck to like hiking and running and things like that.
Awesome. Yeah, I have a ton of questions just based on what you're talking. I've started to dabble in photography a little bit, nowhere near what you do. But I have so many questions. But I guess we'll start at the beginning. Like, are you from New Hampshire originally? Like, what ignited sort of that love of hiking and the outdoors and stuff?
Yeah, so not originally from New Hampshire. I, like many people, am a Massachusetts transplant. I grew up in, yeah, right. Grew up in Groton, Massachusetts. Kind of moved around a little bit, went to school down in southern Massachusetts. After school, moved to Stowe, Vermont for a couple of years just to kind of get out on my own and try things out. Moved back to Massachusetts, and then after a little while there, again, I realized how much I didn't want to be in Massachusetts, and ended up where I am now, which is the Mount Washington Valley. And then what was your other question, Nick? Sorry.
So what got you into hiking and sort of the outdoors and that love of it?
Yeah, that's kind of a long time coming kind of thing. Basically, at a really young age, my dad got me and my older sisters into winter camping at like the ripe age of like 8 years old.
Oh wow!
So that was kind of a really like throw us in the deep end kind of thing.
Trial by fire.
Yeah, it was just front country camping, but still, being at that age, we were kind of really green to everything. And it was a blast. I don't think my sisters stuck with it as much, but I kind of fell in love with everything about it. You always saw me kind of standing by the fire and stoking it and getting things started and playing with it. We also always went hiking in Vermont every fall, so that was kind of like a early age kind of setting the scene, so to speak. And then I probably took on road running back in high school and stuck with that for quite a while. But it wasn't really until I think it was about the same time photography kind of clicked into place too. I had a little bit of a rough patch in my personal life, got out of a relationship, and was just kind of really opening my eyes to what made me happy and hobbies and passions and things like that. And some friends took me and some other friends up hiking up Mount Washington. I'd been in New Hampshire, hiked some in New Hampshire before, but never really done anything much with it. That was my first probably 4,000 footer, other than Mansfield in Vermont. And I just absolutely fell in love. And the photography coinciding with hiking all just kind of spiraled from there, and everything took shape. And that's kind of what really, I guess, sparked the interest and the passion for it.
Cool. That's awesome.
That's awesome. What were you doing for work before you did photography?
So I was selling my soul to hospitality. I worked in hospitality. I was working hospitality.
You gotta sell it.
Yeah.
You gotta sell it if you're gonna do hospitality.
Right. Yeah, I was working in hospitality and events. I'd worked in Massachusetts at Wellesley College doing some, I guess, humanities center events. And then when I moved up to New Hampshire after that, I was working at the Mount Washington Hotel, just doing kind of events. And then I managed part of their inn there for a little bit. And yeah, it wasn't my dream job by any means. It was just kind of something that filled filled the bubble or the void and paid the bills. And then kind of photography took hold, and I really jumped into that and wanted to get out of hospitality as soon as possible.
Yeah,
I bet. How was that transition from doing that into? Do you is there a parallel? Do you feel like you took some of what you learned being in the hospitality business and kind of folded it into photography in any way?
I would say a little bit. Hospitality taught me a lot about managing relationships with people and being able to communicate effectively. I feel like that, in that sense, helped. The transition itself took place right after kind of the height of COVID. I was furloughed working in hospitality, and after like a year or plus of being furloughed and not working, I had been doing photography on the side, taking jobs here and there, and kind of, managing working two jobs, side hustling. And that kind of gave me I guess, the push, as for a lot of people it did, I think, to not, just work that job that I didn't really enjoy. When hospitality or the hotel brought me back from furlough, I got both a demotion and a pay cut because of the times. And that right there sold it for me. I was just like, okay,
no brainer at that point.
I got to get out. So I jumped in photography full time, kind of dove in the deep end, and then took a part-time job at REI just to make sure, as I got things off the ground, I was stable. And then eventually phased out of REI, and here I am just doing photography full time.
That's super cool. So in the hiking, you consider yourself a list hiker? Or you just kind of hike what you like, or trail run what you like, or?
For a short time, I was a list hiker, and that was right when I was getting into it. I did the 4,000 footers list, and that took me probably until like 2021 after I started really hiking, like 2016, 2017-ish. After that, I kind of got burnt out from the list and really just wanted to do whatever I wanted. I had started making a lot of friends up in this area. Some of them were tracing, some of them were doing their own lists. I certainly joined in on those adventures, but for the most part, for myself, I just wanted to feel open-ended and just do whatever pleased me. To this day, I don't think I'll ever go back to doing a list, just because in my everyday life, I'm always hiking, and I don't necessarily need a list to drive me. There's just so much up here in New Hampshire that I never get tired of it.
Yeah, I hear that. I'm definitely a list hiker, but I feel like sometimes like people have opened my eyes to doing different stuff that I probably would, like people that are either just getting something for maybe a different season or working on their own lists, or even like just doing like a winter overnight. And I did a winter overnight at Zealand Hut this year and kind of was like, oh, this is a cool thing to kind of go out and do. But yeah, it seems like there's so much to explore in New Hampshire. So I definitely am guilty of the same thing myself, of kind of having blinders on to be like, oh, there's all these other beautiful mountains up here. Like, let me go explore. Maybe I should explore some of this other stuff rather than hike Mount Hale for the 7th time to get it for like a month. But so with the photography, sort of, you mentioned that it went hand in hand with the hiking. Like, where did you notice you sort of had a flair for photography? Like, was it starting to take pictures of your friends on hikes and people being like, hey, this looks really good, Corey? Like, how'd that work?
So to preface that, I took a black and white darkroom film course in high school. Being back in high school, though, I didn't give it a second thought about my future or, how it might actually interest me. And it did interest me. So I kind of just let it drop off after high school, even though I had a blast with it. That same film camera that I had used, which was my dad's, when I started hiking again, or more serious into hiking, doing some of the 4,000 footers, I started taking that film camera with me on hikes, and with friends, started taking pictures of them, started taking pictures of the landscape, quickly realized how expensive film was and wanted to kind of segue away from that. And being the time, I guess, in my life that it was where I was looking for new interests, I was like, you know what, I'll just invest in a nice digital camera to kind of play around with and have fun. Sorry, go ahead.
I did just have a question. So you said in high school with darkroom, so like you were developing your own film as well?
Yeah, they were teaching us. We were fortunate enough to have a darkroom in our high school.
That's cool.
And we were taught how to develop in the darkroom and everything. Ask me now how to do it, and I have no idea because it's been that long.
Okay. That's pretty neat. That's pretty neat. That's not something I feel like even to be like, I'm assuming it wasn't that long ago to hear that you're developing film and kind of doing a black and white photo class. That's very cool that was something that was offered.
Yeah. It was definitely a once in a lifetime experience to get that and be taught that. I feel like a lot of high schools probably don't have something that extensive as far as a photography program. But yeah, to kind of get back to the story, quickly realized how expensive film was and wanted to buy that digital camera. My friends then started encouraging me to get an Instagram because that was,
the thing.
At that time it was the thing to do, and to start sharing your adventures and your things and your photos. So I did that, even though I wasn't a huge social media person, and it all kind of just, like I said, spiraled from there. The hiking and the photography together, it just launched a passion for the two of them that I didn't realize at the time that I had. I just fell in love with hiking and being out there. And in a lot of ways, I consider myself like a hiker first, if you will, because of how much I enjoy it. It's not really just the photography that like motivates me to get out there and to be there. But nowadays, photography is such a huge part of my life, between it being my job and also what I love doing out in the mountains, that it just still to this day, it motivates me every time for every hike to get out there and bring my camera, even though it's a heavy load.
Yeah. Yeah. So did it start sort of where you were just taking pictures of people on hikes, or like were you like, and it's funny because there's stuff like I've had friends who got married on a mountain and kind of had photographers up there, but this is something where it didn't even dawn on me of like, this is sort of a job or a hustle, like you said, a side hustle for people where they're like, oh, like I'm also a photographer that will go hike 2,500 feet up a mountain with you with all my gear and take pictures of you. Cause that's like you said, I mean, even when I'll hike with my camera, I'm sure as you know now, is like, there's so many people that come up to me still and are like, oh, like, well, your phone takes just as good pictures as this, blah, blah, blah. And like, I'm sure you've heard that all the time, but it's like, there is something I think where, especially when you get into lenses, that you just can't, your phone can't capture stuff like this. Like it just can't. So that was a little open-ended, but yeah, like how did the side hustle start?
Yeah, so it all started taking pictures of my friends on these hikes, cool scenery, etc. Taking some landscapes with it. At the time, me and my friends that were hiking together, we really got into chasing sunrises. And so actually some of the friends that I was hiking with were also dabbling photographers. And so we all just got really, really into doing sunrises, so much so that it was every single weekend without fail for like 2 years straight, where we were sunrise hiking both Saturday and Sunday. Because at the time we were pretty much all weekend warriors. So yeah, that kind of launched it. It was taking pictures of the landscapes, the sunrises, the people in those places, the grueling hiking. I guess, if you will, the job opportunities that started coming from there were actually at first in the form of like outdoor gear ambassadorships. So I believe at the time I was an ambassador for brands like MSR, Thermarest, did Solomon for a little while, did some lesser known brands too that were just like t-shirt companies, and Noon and things like that, kind of all across the board. And then after building somewhat of a relationship with a lot of those brands, I started getting job opportunities to take what I do now with my full-time job in photography, which is outdoor commercial work, or essentially they're advertising photography for these outdoor brands.
That's neat. So like they'll be like, hey, like we have a new pair of snowshoes or new jacket or things like that, and you kind of just go out and try to create great photos of them, make it look awesome.
Yeah, I mean, as you probably know, outdoor brands are constantly coming out with new apparel, new gear, new hard goods, et cetera, every season. And those products oftentimes, depending on how big they are to the company, need photography so that they can advertise for them. So brands would either reach out, or I would try to make a connection with the brand and hopefully line it up well enough to be able to get on a assignment of some sort and take that product, essentially take it into the outdoors where it belongs, and make compelling images or storytelling images of those products.
That's super cool. So a lot of times if they're coming to you with a product, is it sort of up to you to dictate, like, say, like, oh, like, it's a nice day, it's this type of day, and obviously you're chasing sunrise, so I'm assuming you have a pretty good experience, especially in the whites, with like what looks good at certain times of day. Do you have like free reign over where you're going to go with those, or do they tell you kind of where to be, or how does that work?
Yeah, so it all kind of varies from brand to brand. Some brands are much more, I guess, over shoulder. They want to piggyback how things look or how they're photographed, so that they have a say in what the campaign or the story of the product is. Other brands are much more open-ended. They're like, we trust you, and we just know that you'll go take this out into the outdoors, use it, and take photos of it that look authentic, realistic, an actual like use case of how it would be used in the outdoors. So I guess alongside that, it very well varies brand to brand, what you're getting. Especially if you haven't worked with a brand before, oftentimes they're a little bit more piggyback, if you will. I'll use that word. They'll kind of dictate what they want from you in a much more like organized fashion. Brands that I've worked longer with, or am much more familiar with, brands like I've worked with Catula, for example, their microspikes and gaiters. I've worked with them going on probably since I started my business, so several years now. And at this point, a lot of times they're much more relaxed in that they'll be like, we trust you to create a really cool story, really cool adventure, and then just create really great imagery alongside that.
Awesome.
Let me ask you a question with, like, because I kind of think about this for artists in general, but with a big influx of like the AI technology, do you feel like that's having a impact on you in what it is that you do artistically, or do you utilize any AI? Are you fully against it? What's your take on what's happening with that movement right now?
Yeah, so for starters, as far as like how I use it and if I use it, pretty much I am mostly against it. And the only caveat to that is in editing software, they have really handy, basically removal and adjustment tools or brushes to edit like a certain part of an image. For example, like say accidentally there is a dog in the background of a photo of a person that you took in front of a really nice view, and you don't want the dog there. These spot removals or brushes can essentially, especially with AI, they're a lot more advanced in detecting these kind of things, and you're able to more accurately select that dog, just as the example, and remove it and create the background behind it in place of the dog. So in that sense, I find AI extremely helpful because it makes my job so much easier versus trying to, with Photoshop, create filler with that background from another piece of the background in the image already. But in every other sense of AI and how it's kind of starting to take place in the industry, at least from my perspective, it's still early to tell how it might impact things. I haven't noticed a huge shift in like actually being able to get work because of it. More so what I've actually noticed a shift in the industry for is post-COVID years, and how the outdoor industry has started to decline because of it after those, all those years where people were getting outside. And I think things are starting to return more to normal. You might have heard even brands like REI are starting to have like huge layoffs and things like that.
Yeah, I'd heard they canceled some of their outdoor programs recently, which was kind of a bummer. I've done a couple navigation ones and stuff like that too, so it was bad. It was sad to hear.
Right. But yeah, that actually directly affects my business because I'm tied into the outdoor industry. That's the majority of the type of photography that I do, which is working with outdoor brands. So I guess AI, to answer your question, I don't think it's had a huge impact yet. I think down the line, when it's a lot smarter and can create images that actually look realistic, then it might start making more of a wave in at least an artist category. But for now, I think it's still too much in its youth.
I'd be curious too because of what you're doing inherently and looking at products. I feel like, I mean, this is just my opinion, like as a hiker and as someone that just buys outdoor gear, but I think I would respect a company a lot more that's paying someone to go out and photograph like pictures of their gear, like in the wild, so to speak, as opposed to like, let's Photoshop a guy on Franconia Ridge and some Catula micro spikes and like make it look like it's sunrise or thing. Like, I feel like there's, again, like who knows how advanced some of this stuff will get, but I feel like just at face value with how a lot of those brands market themselves, I feel like it sort of goes against to be like, well, we could pay a photographer this, or we could just generate this thing. Like it sounds kind of bad, I feel like, in general. Unless, and again, I don't know, like not
companies, they'll do anything.
Yeah,
they'll do anything to cut that bottom line.
Yeah. But that's good to hear.
I feel like, yeah, just to kind of go off what you were saying, Nick, I feel like it's very noticeable when images for outdoor brands in particular are created with, say, a photographer, just as an example, that might not be super outdoorsy. They're just kind of taking it into their backwoods and photographing it more like kind of fake lifestyle. Like it's very like post shot and like that kind of thing, versus someone that actually, goes into the outdoors, backpacks, takes that product, 10 miles into the woods or the mountains and actually photographs it being used authentically. To me, there's no replacing that kind of story and the actual like emotions that come with it. And I think that's where AI will actually really struggle to compete. But who knows? Maybe in the future it'll really stand up.
When you bring these products out there, are you bringing somebody with you to like model this product for you, or are you the model? Are you out there with the micro spikes?
I'm imagining Corey just shooting a picture of a micro spike on his boot and be like, "Here we go, like this will work." No.
If I was just photographing myself, I feel like the camera angles would be somewhat limited. Timer shots and that kind of thing. But no, to answer your question, taking people out there with me,
cool.
And depending on the brand, sometimes they're more like actual talent, if you will, or like models that do this for their work, for their day job, or other times it's again depending on the brand. Other times it's me taking my friends that just love to be out there as well, and know what they're doing, and taking these products out and using them, and I get to photograph my friends and hang out with them in the process.
That's cool.
That's cool. So I guess we'll get into the little bit the nerdy sort of photography stuff, but do you mind like kind of giving away like what's sort of your setup? Like how much gear are you taking up with you on a typical shoot? Are you taking like tripods and all that stuff, or how much is it? How much does it weigh? And how do you manage that along with sort of the load that you need to bring on a typical hike?
Well, I'm always the slowest hiker. No, I mean, for me, it all depends on what I'm trying to shoot. If it's just me on a kind of midweek sunrise hike or day hike with a friend or something like that, just to get out, sometimes I won't even bring my camera because I'll just need to step away from it. But if it's a casual hike and I'm just out with a friend, I'll usually just bring one camera body and a lens, unless I know for some reason like that a sunrise is going to be amazing, there's going to be an undercast, then I might carry up multiple lenses or something. In terms of like other gear like tripods and things like that, I tend to not use tripods unless for some reason I'm trying to shoot the night sky,
Okay.
or if I'm doing like really, low light kind of images with
Yeah, like
people and trying to.
long exposure type stuff.
Yeah,
Okay.
I tend to not be, a photographer that does composites or stacks images and things like that. Because my work is primarily working with people and products versus landscapes, it tends to be less tripod and more on the go, if you will. Certainly, a tripod will always have its time and place, and for that, I will utilize it. But um, I guess the times that I do use tripods is fewer and far between, even if I'm taking landscapes.
Okay. Are you using sort of just a normal hiking pack and kind of cramming everything in that, and I'm always kind of curious how people carry their cameras and stuff like that, because I feel like it's always an interesting thing, and you realize how awkward it is to just carry like a heavy camera body and like a
Oh
long
yeah.
lens, like not whack it on the side of trees. And I've
Hmm.
done some vlogging, and it's like amazing how crap gets caught on like tree branches, and then you get pine needles and everything, and it's amazing how well and like the weather sealing is on some of these things. Like I took
Oh yeah.
a newer camera on like the whole Zealand overnight, and it was like probably -10 degrees. The thing was completely basically not a block of ice, but encased in snow. And I'm defrosting it by like the stove in Zealand hut, like waiting for I'm like, because I wanted to use it again. And I'm like, it was funny, but how is
Yeah.
it? How do you manage sort of, I guess, carrying all that stuff?
Yeah. So first off, I'll start by saying cameras are very much, in my eyes, tools, and they can be used that way. Especially in this day and age, some cameras are really built like tanks, and they are meant to withstand elements and more severe or extreme temperatures. I've taken my cameras out, probably like the lowest temp I've taken them out is like a -50 wind chill.
Whew.
Um,
Yeah, that's cool.
and and they do start to, like, you can notice like they start to slow down and not function so well, but and everything leading up to that, they work extremely well, and they're, as you mentioned, weather sealed and things like that. As far as how I guess work with cameras and use them and transport them on these hikes, it's pretty funny. I get so many questions about how I'll like carry my camera on hikes, and a lot of times people are using the Peak Design clip thing that goes on a shoulder strap. And for those that don't know, Peak Design clip is essentially this little clip thing that goes in on your shoulder strap of a hiking backpack. And then it has a mount that goes on the camera, and you just click it in and it stays there on your shoulder. Unless I'm backpacking, I don't even use that. For the most part, I keep it just, strung over my shoulder and kind of at the ready. To me, tucked away inside your pack or, on a clip, you're never ready to use that camera when the moment strikes, and you never know when that moment might strike. You might see something like a moose pass by real quick. You might see the emotion or the expression of your friend, like first getting a first view and like quickly getting excited and things like that. With
that is spoken
photography,
like a true artist, dude.
with photography, it's all about the moments, and you never know when those moments are going to strike, and you kind of have to just be ready. So for me, I've always just kind of kept it slung over my shoulder, unless it's like pitch black and we're hiking up for a sunrise where I probably won't be using my camera. Sometimes I'll keep it tucked away in my pack. But otherwise, I'll go on like long trail run days, like doing a single day Prezi or something like that. And I'll pretty much, for the most part, have it strung over my shoulder the whole time. And as far as like running with it, it's never convenient or easy. And it's always like bouncing into your body or bruising my back or something like that. But it's, in my eyes, worth the little bit of pain to be able to capture those moments.
Have you ever had any incidents where you've damaged camera gear? So I have a story. Well, I have two stories. So I was doing basically a vlog, but like going out with the tripod. Probably do more video getting into photography again. But I was out in Dix in the Adirondacks, and it was windy. And it's funny because I had my tripod set up to do a shot, and I was like walking out doing the typical vlogger lame, like you're just walking out in the summit with a view kind of shot, and a wind gust hit it perfectly, and it fell straight on the lens. and actually cracked sort of the inside ceiling where the camera body was fine. And I'm assuming they make the lenses and the body like this, but the lens basically part of it sheared off. And then I actually was in the parking lot after we did Hedgehog last November with my daughter and my wife. And again, wasn't paying attention. And I think I just took off my jacket or something and hid it in the parking lot. And it's funny because like I'm taking you're taking the lens through all these portions of scrambles and ledges, and like I'm in the freaking parking lot and I knock it over and the thing falls flat on and ends up damaging. This one I was able to get repaired. It wasn't a full, like it was just done. But yeah, any good stories about damaging expensive, which I think all camera gear is pretty much expensive. There's not anything that's cheap, unfortunately.
No. And if it's cheap, it's kind of like outdoor gear. You actually get what you pay for. If it's cheap, it's probably not so much worth using. But yeah, I've definitely had some run-ins with damaging camera gear. In fact, the first digital camera that I invested in after I kind of transitioned away from film photography, early on in kind of playing around with photography and such, I had it set up on a tripod, and I was actually taking a picture of myself on like a timer at a waterfall.
We all do
that. Yep. At a waterfall, and lo and behold, I went out like by the waterfall, and it was doing a long exposure kind of thing, and it kind of fell over out of the blue after like 20 minutes of me shooting with it. So it fell into the water, and I got it out of the water, but it was dead and gone.
Oh boy.
And then another run-in I had was actually, I think last year I was on Franconia Ridge for sunrise. I was photographing a couple for engagement photos, and I happened to have a 35 millimeter camera lens with me, and it slipped out of my hand as I was changing lenses to a 50 millimeter, and it bounced and then fell down into a crevice between like Lincoln and where that's kind of like Bond Cliff, where there's that rock that juts out a little bit away. There's that piece near Lincoln where it kind of juts away and it's exposed and away from things, and it just fell in a hole down there.
Oh boy. Yeah. It's one of those you're like, well, I'm not going to get that one back.
So funny thing is, one of the people that I was with, actually, I was kind of just writing it off like I was never going to get it because of where it fell. And I hated doing that, considering things like leave no trace.
Yeah.
But the guy actually just jumped down and like went and got it himself. He was much more comfortable with like the sheer heights of that area than I was. So he ended up getting it back. It was so far damaged though, because of like, it had literally just bounced several times on rock. But like I said earlier, cameras are tools. They're meant to be used that way. And hey, that's what I have business insurance for.
Yeah. That's cool. That's funny. That makes total sense. That's not even anything I would have thought of, but getting insurance for stuff like that, because game where gear is that expensive.
I guess when it's a hobby, it's maybe less, worrisome and things like that.
You just lose a piece of your soul when the lens breaks.
Yeah. Versus if it's your job, like me, if I drop in and break a lens and I don't have business insurance, and for whatever reason, if I'm not able to like afford getting another lens or something like that, and I have a shoot next week and I normally use that lens, like what am I going to do? So I have to have business insurance to be able to cover that and make sure I can replace it.
Smart.
Yeah.
I have a question, Corey.
Yeah.
And you don't have to give away any secrets if you don't want to, but do you have like a go-to spot where you go take pictures?
Oh geez.
You don't have to give any secrets. How about this? What's some of your favorite places to go take photos, and some of your favorite pictures maybe that you've taken and where those were taken?
Yeah, and ones that are not your super secret, because I feel like a lot of photographers have secret spots. So ones that are accessible, but I guess I don't know. I'll let you talk.
Yeah. I mean, how about the White Mountains?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Go anywhere.
All right. Big circle. That's
All
a
right,
big circle.
next question.
I'm joking, completely joking. I'm open to answering that question. I don't believe in like gatekeeping or any of that.
Cool.
But yeah, to answer your question, some favorite spots. I mean, here in the White Mountains, there's so many, and it all also depends on like, because I often sunrise hike. It also, you can have a terrible sunrise and not really enjoy that place that you're in anymore because of
Yeah.
that terrible sunrise being socked in. But some favorite spots include Boot Spur, even though it's not like technically a 4,000 footer because it's not on the list or whatever. That to me is such a like really sacred spot. You have views all around you. You're looking, really deep into things like towards isolation and the Driver River Wilderness. You just have miles and miles of mountain layers before you. Other times, I've caught just absolutely unreal sunrises on Adams, where I've caught a sunrise where I was, the cloud bank was literally right at my feet, and it felt like I was walking on the clouds.
Wow, that's insane.
I've caught good sunrises on just about, I feel like, every 4,000 footer. Some, I guess, not 4,000 footers that I enjoy. I really enjoy Evans Notch. The bald faces, I feel like they get some pretty good attention, and rightfully so because they're amazing. The Royces are pretty unreal, actually, too. A really fun hike alongside it. And then, even going into places like Nancy Pond, Norcross Pond, if you've ever been there. Something about being out there, too, just miles and miles away from any kind of civilization, just really is humbling, not only, but also just makes you appreciate where you are, and also has a beautiful view into the Pemi.
Awesome.
So, to get back to gear a little bit, this is personal curiosity as well. So I'm sure some people find it interesting because I feel like hiking and photography kind of go together. But as far as gear, do you have any sort of favorite cameras that you're using? Are you like a prime lens versus zoom lens guy? Like I heard you were mentioning kind of 35 versus 50 and swapping. Like, do you want to give a little sort of quick summary, I guess, on some of that stuff?
Yeah, by all means. And maybe some of the audience will know some camera stuff and they'll know what I'm talking about. I'll try to speak in somewhat layman's terms. So yeah, I shoot with I guess two camera bodies right now. One is a Nikon Z8, which is a mirrorless body, and then the other one is a Nikon D850, and that is not a mirrorless body, but it is a full frame camera body. And then as far as lenses, I have a whole slew of them. I primarily shoot on prime lenses, which is just a fixed focal length lens. In other words, you can't zoom in and out. It's just kind of one focal distance. And I think I like prime lenses primarily because as a hiker, runner, etc., I'm so used to moving around so much already as it is that I don't like being like kind of pigeonholed in one spot and just zooming in and out. I like to, as I'm shooting, whether it be a subject, a hiker, runner, move around with that subject. And as I move around, they might be moving around. And it just, for me, always, I feel like I'm able to get better shots that way.
That's cool. Yeah, I feel like the first time I ever started messing with a prime lens, the first one I picked up was basically I had a micro four thirds mirrorless, and I was just messing with shooting pictures of my daughter in the yard, and it really like hit me because you can't zoom in on it, but it was so weird to just be like, oh, I just have to move closer, like to kind of change the shot, or I have to move further away. It's kind of funny, and with video, I've kind of gotten set into just using primes. I know a lot of people seem to say that they're generally work faster as far as focus and stuff like that. I don't know enough to know how true that is, but
yeah, primes, I feel like for the most part get a lot of feedback saying that they're not only sharper when they take an image, but a lot of primes end up dealing with better color. It's just better glass all around, and glass is what makes up the lens. So not only because of the quality of the lens with primes, but also because it's just where I'm at comfortability wise. That's kind of why I've stuck mostly with primes. Now, that's not to say that I don't use telephoto or zoom lenses at all. I certainly do, depending on what I'm trying to shoot or the job or etc. So, yeah.
Well, do you have any sort of favorite go-to lenses, or do you just sort of switch it up a lot?
Yeah, thanks for repeating that question because I got a little sidetracked.
No, there's a lot to talk about. I feel like when it gets into
Yeah.
photography. So,
yeah, I mean, I probably shoot like maybe 75% of my stuff, whether it be work or otherwise personal, with a 35 millimeter lens.
okay.
Other ones that I really enjoy, you know, a 50, 20, and then maybe my 70 to 200, but I so rarely take it out because I just don't want to carry that hunk of metal and glass.
Yeah, yeah.
I don't often take that one out, maybe as much as I should. But otherwise, I would say 35 is definitely by far my favorite, followed up by with probably a 50 and a 20.
Okay. Very cool. Very cool.
Yeah.
And so we can talk about like I think one of the things that it really like I've seen I don't know when I started following you on Instagram, but I feel like when I see your photos, like I can immediately generally know it's one of your photos. I feel like you have you have your own style, which I think is very cool because I think sometimes it's hard to tell, and I feel like you stick to sort of that style. But do you want to talk a little bit about sort of maybe the editing process and sort of finding? I mean, and maybe this is a subconscious thing. Is like I just don't know. It looks good to me, so this is why I kind of do it. But is there any sort of I guess that road about learning how to maybe do stuff and post a little bit and sort of finding your style and your distinctive sort of I guess voice in photography?
Yeah, it's a good one actually because early on in, I guess, my career, if you will, with photography, I had pretty much no technical background whatsoever in photography or editing. Um, and I was very fortunate that I had a lot of friends that were photographers, and I picked up a lot as a result because of that. And I was just constantly shooting while hiking and being out there. But I think for me, something that I really struggled with early on was editing, just because I had no formal training with it. Truth be told, I had no idea what I was doing. I was just kind of playing around. At the time, I probably didn't know what software was better or like what to use, and I was pretty just green with it all. And I think that was probably one of the hardest parts of photography for me because I didn't have any training with it. And I guess that's one of the wonderful things about this day and age where YouTube has like everything you can imagine on like how to. um, but it still for me, took, I would say, a solid few years of really just like playing around with stuff. And for a while, if I look back on any old photos that I took, I'm just like, wow, like I was really bad. you know, and that's just part of it is learning, and you learn by trial and error. As far as my style now, I think for me, at least for the time being, you never know, my style might change.
Yeah.
As my interests and things change and as I learn more. But for me now, I guess my editing style, or at least how the images look, they're partially inspired by film, which even though I don't really shoot film much anymore, it, I guess, like speaks to my roots, if you will. But I also really like images that have a lot of contrast and they like really pop in color and are also fairly bright. I guess darker images have never really spoken to me too much. Not to say I don't enjoy shooting like low light or dark scenery or things like that. I actually really do, but I don't like so much the darker imagery myself. So that I guess is what speaks to me in terms of style is like a really good pop of color, higher contrast, a little bit inspired by film. Sometimes I tend to add in a little bit of like grain to the imagery,
Okay.
making it look a little bit like older fashioned, if you will. I think those are kind of like the biggest themes for me. I really, really hate the color green and yellow. And I think a lot of that comes from like when you're taking pictures out in the mountains or the woods in springtime when there's that like neon green and it just reflects on everything. It's one of the hardest things to edit in terms of shooting like outdoorsy images, is that kind of color green. And so as a result, I've probably built up a hate towards it. But yeah, I guess I don't know if that answered your question. I'm kind of just speaking plainly and openly about it.
That was super interesting. And again, I don't know if it's just because it's winter time and it seems like you've been posting a lot of winter photos, but I'm assuming you prefer, after your mention and of not really liking the color green, that you enjoy probably editing winter photos and winter scenery more than say summer or spring.
I would say maybe large scale, yes, but not like always the case. Because I'm also a really avid hiker and such. Actually, one of my favorite seasons is winter, because I love the cold. I just tend to overheat as a human being, and
I'm with you there.
And the warmer months. So when it's like -20, I'm like, I'm
actually cold for once.
Yeah, right. But also because I really enjoy taking winter scenery, especially in the White Mountains, where I feel like our mountains here they shine in the snow and the ice. I feel like there's a lot more to them, even though I love them too in the the 3 seasons, but I feel like they really shine and become that much more like majestic and profound in the winter.
Yeah, it's one thing I always like to drop on people too, is because people say like, oh, the winter photos look clear, and like I think it doesn't hit people that the humidity and generally in the air is less in the winter. It's way drier, so you just end up with these more extensive, crisper views than say on a humid June day when it's wicked sticky.
Yep, and because I naturally love sunrise hikes, alpenglow and things like that are that much more dramatic in winter. If I had to follow that up, I would probably say I love fall, both as a human being, but also in terms of photography. And that's probably my second favorite season for being out in these mountains.
That's awesome. Awesome. Any other questions, Josh?
No, we covered a lot.
Yeah,
we covered a lot of photography.
That was a lot of topic. This was super interesting, Corey. Do you want to mention kind of where the people can find you? Sort of if they're looking for photos, or if they just want to sort of follow you or see where you're
or if they want to bring you some business. If they want
to bring you some business, exactly.
Yeah, sure. I really appreciate it. If you're on Instagram, then it's at coreyoutdoors. I don't know why I have that name or what started it really, but it has stuck, and now so much so that all my friends call me Coreo. They don't call me by like Corey and then my last name. It's Coreo. And then actually, I'll just say one more thing. The joke is that when and if me and my wife have a kid in our future, the baby's name is not going to be whatever its name is. It's going to be Baby-O. Yeah, right. And then my website is coreyoutdoors.com. And Corey is EY, so COREY, davidphotography.com.
Excellent. Well, Corey, thanks again for coming on, chatting it up about photography. I didn't want to get I have more questions, but I don't want to turn into photography podcast, I guess, from a hiking podcast. I can ask you those privately.
Yeah, we can catch up over a hike sometime.
But yeah, hopefully catch you out there sometime, and keep enjoying your photos and doing what you're doing. I really love, especially I feel like in Instagram, like we're living in an age of so much where it's kind of good where I feel like you can get your stuff out there really well, but also it's almost like inundating sometimes for when there's so many images, especially of the White Mountains and people hiking and people being able to snap photos like on their phones and not even have to lug up this stuff. But I really do feel like your stuff always sticks out, and I really enjoy seeing the photos you're posting and sort of the different adventures you seem to be on, whether it's taking on products or with friends or whatever. But it's super cool, and hope to catch you on the trail sometime.
Well, that really means a lot. Thanks so much. I really appreciate you guys having me on the podcast. Thanks, Nick. Thanks, Josh.
No problem, man. Thank you.
All right, man. Have a good night.
All right, see you out there.
All right, man. So you got tonight. Wow. Do you have anything for tonight's descent? You got tonight. That doesn't make sense.
I got tonight, baby. I got
tonight.
tonight.
Sounds like that could be a song.
I got no, tonight. I mean, I've continued. I think we're towards the end of Mr. Beast games. I don't know if you've gotten into Mr. Beast games, but we got locked in to that, and
oh boy,
it was really good, very intriguing, much better than Love Is Blind. I don't know why my wife continues to watch that show.
Ash was like, we had issues with Netflix, and she was freaking out a little bit. She's like, I need to watch Love Is Blind. So we had to talk to Tony about the Netflix. But we got the Netflix situation squared away. We're all good. So I'm sure she's gonna start. She's probably watching that like now or very shortly from now. I'm willing to bet.
You got all the passwords back in order and everything's good.
Everything's good.
Oh man.
No IPs got blocked.
Okay. Good. But yeah, so we've been watching Beast games. I don't know if I talked about this on the podcast.
As in Mr. Beast.
Yeah, Mr. Beast has created his own game show, and it's basically you can win $5 million. It's like the most that's ever been, biggest prize that's ever happened on a game show and ever. So it was very good. I liked that. So I've been watching that, and then honestly, I've also been watching Pop Culture Jeopardy on Amazon Prime. Have you seen that yet?
No.
So it's hosted by what's his name? Colin Yost from Saturday Night Live.
Okay.
The guy that does like the Weekend Update with Michael Shea.
Okay.
On Saturday Night Live. So he's the host of Pop Culture Jeopardy, and it's just like Jeopardy for me. It's just not, you don't have to have like a ton of like school learning. You just have to have your finger on the pulse.
Come on, Josh. You're a very learned man.
I'm not. I know a lot of useless trivia. I'll have you know, they did a cartoon category and I crushed it, dude.
I'm sure you did.
I was 5 for 5 or whatever, however many questions were in that category.
Excellent. That's kind of cool. I feel like you don't see shows on like that too much anymore. I feel like they're a good family show too. Like they're like one of the few things like you could watch the kiddos and everybody could be interested in.
We got like 4 episodes in. Actually, like Jeremiah watches the Beast games with us too. Like we're almost done with that. I think there's like a couple more episodes left, but then the Pop Culture Jeopardy, dude, we played it. We were like just watching it as a family, dude. It was fun. Even Jeremiah was getting some questions right. It was crazy.
Cool.
So yeah, man. How about you? What do you got?
Nothing much.
Love Is Blind.
Yeah, that'll be Ash. Love Is Blind, which probably inevitably will mean I will catch some of it, and I'll be like, roll my eyes and be like, I'm gonna go upstairs and do something else. I feel like once you see one season of it, you've seen it all. It's kind of just watching a train crash with these people, and it's like I just think it's funny because the more that, not that I film like professionally, or I'm not even close to that, but it's funny when I see stuff with cameras where I'm like, they set up this shot like completely, like they had them walk over there and do this. Like it's not. It's so much of it's just I don't know. Anyways, but we've been watching. There's a new season of Kitchen Nightmares that came out with a bunch of like Gordon Ramsay goes to a bunch of like New Orleans restaurants, which is kind of cool. It's been interesting. And now it's just sort of continuing through that. So I'm just back on the Kitchen Nightmares train. And I love he's been saying his favorite line occasionally, which he's just like, shut it down. Shut it down. It's the best. This guy Frank on one episode that was just fantastic. Yeah.
Dude, I don't know how, but it's back in my algorithm for like my like Instagram reels. So I'll just spend like hours just watching clips of different Gordon Ramsay like Kitchen Nightmares episodes. So you can't make a bloody burger.
Just so insulting.
It's so good.
It was
dude.
funny too with some of the at least the first 4 or 5 episodes that were all like Super Bowl related. Like they had a couple different NFL stars on, and also like he kind of like worked in the Super Bowl, and they're like everything. He's like, how are they supposed to cook for the Super Bowl in this town like this, or like something like that, where it's like he's not very good at like acting, I guess, and making it in, which is kind of funny because it's like they probably just like, okay, say this, and he's like, okay, I'll say this with as little effort as possible to try to work it in context.
Yeah,
so that's kind of funny.
He's not an actor; he's a chef.
But yeah, man, I think that's about it.
Nice. You ready to get into the hypothetical?
Yeah, dude, let's do it.
All right, Nick.
Josh.
Imagine you could go back to the age of 5 and relive the rest of your life knowing everything that you know now. You will re-experience your entire adolescence with both the cognitive ability of an adult and the memories of everything you've learned from having lived your life previously. So the question, would you lose your virginity earlier or later than you did the first time around, and by how many years? That's such a waste.
I know. I'm like, that was just like, it reminds me of like those stand-ups that do those jokes where it's like just an entirely unnecessary setup. And then be like, so
that's such a waste of a question.
Earlier or later, and what was the rest of it?
Than you did the first time around, and by how many years?
I don't know, probably later, and I think it would probably be like, I don't know, 3 years? I don't know. It's been a while. Something like that.
I would, yeah. Well, I'll just make it easy. I would wait later, and I would wait until
later.
I was just married. I would just wait until I was married. Like
I'd wait until I was at least with the person that I ended up being with.
Right. Yeah, I'm with you. That has nothing to do with the having all the experience and knowing what I know now. Like,
yeah.
Are you kidding me? What does that have to do with that?
Yeah, that setup was just unnecessary. Thanks, hypothetical.
Yeah, that's a waste.
Just wasting 20 seconds.
Yeah, that was a waste of a setup.
It was.
It's a good question. It's just unnecessary because what does that have to do with going back to the age of 5 and relive the rest of your life knowing everything you know now? Nothing. All I would do is put money in Apple and make sure that I was set up for the rest of my life to be as rich as possible.
I'd invest in Apple and Google, or I'd get my parents to invest in them. Or Amazon.
Dad, you gotta believe me.
It's like, come on, that'll never do anything.
I saw you shit in your pants yesterday. You think I'm gonna believe you and buy an Apple stock? Get the fuck. You stuck a fork in the toaster to get a bagel out. Are you kidding me?
You couldn't even go to sailing camp successfully. You almost died. You're popping out of that life vest. I'm supposed to trust you with investments. Come on.
I'm going to take your stock ideas. Get out of here. Oh, my Lord. Oh, well, by the time I'm old enough to have my own money, I guess I still would have a shot at something, at investing in something.
Get some nice savings bonds.
Yeah. Get my money in crypto real early. It's going to be the next big thing, I'm telling you. Just start betting on sports, like who's going to win all the Super Bowls and stuff like that.
Yeah, you'd be good with that.
Just make all my money.
All that. Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know what would be
that'd be about it.
What was like the biggest underdog? I mean, the Red Sox was probably pretty good. You could bet on the them beating the Yankees in that playoffs. That'd probably be a pretty big payout.
Maybe that wait until halftime. Wait until halftime of that Patriots Falcons.
Oh yeah,
Super Bowl.
That'd be good. Or the Patriots Seattle game.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
That would be another good one. Yeah, you'd be like, I got it. They'll be like, okay.
$6 million that the Patriots are gonna win.
You just like take out a home equity loan right there. I'm gonna put 50 G's on this.
Yeah. I mean, I had a full-time job at that point.
Yeah.
Definitely. I think I was already at the post office by then, so.
Yeah.
Yeah. Definitely. I could make it very lucrative. hopefully, if I'm having all this life experience, I don't have to go back and work for the post office. hopefully, I can figure something else out along the way.
You'd just be on an island somewhere in the Caribbean, wasting your days away.
So. I would hope so.
Yeah, I'm like, I think if we did it right, neither of us would have jobs right now. Ideally, by this point.
That's it.
Hindsight 2020.
All right, terrible question, but good conversation.
Yeah, agreed.
All right, man. Anything else? We got some more stickers.
Yeah, we got fresh stickers. I've been shipping them out.
Nice.
Not fast and furious, but at least for us, like I've shipped out a pretty decent amount over the past week. Yeah, we got nice 4x, and I got them a little bit bigger this time. So if you got stickers last time, and if you want stickers again, I'll send them out as long as you're going to put them on something. Just don't put them on. Well, I mean, I don't care if you do anything illegal. I guess with them, it doesn't really matter. We didn't encourage that, but if you put them on places, don't put them on trail signs or things like that, please. If you want to put them on like random signs in your community or coffee shops or whatever, go for it. Anything to
don't
get
listen
the word
to
out,
Nick.
right?
Put them wherever you want. You're an adult, you know. But you can put them wherever you want.
But I got like 5x7 holographic ones and then like 4x6 matte ones, so they're a little bit bigger, beefier than last time. So you can show how much you love us with a bigger sticker if you would like. But yeah, we got those out. We got plenty of them.
Fantastic. Nice. Yeah, and don't forget, like, review, subscribe, share us with a friend. You can find us on social media at Puds Podcast. You can find us on YouTube and watch us on YouTube at Puds_podcast. And until next time, bippity boppity, give me the zoppity.
Bye.
Puds Podcast was produced and recorded in Black Cat Studios by the Pud Boys. Find us on Apple, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. If you enjoyed, please consider leaving us a review and subscribing. Find us on social media, and we'll see you next time.